We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and guests, Thomas Jefferson and I agree, all men are created equal. But I think he would agree with me also that each of us was endowed with certain abilities and talents. My talent or curse is curiosity. I am a curious person ever since I can recall. When I was a little boy in Northern California, we lived in the country. And I would go explore my world. I'd go out into the woods and I'd pick flowers and look under rocks and go down to the creek to look for pollywogs. I'd look in the sky and I'd ask that question that's been asked so many times by so many young children. Daddy, why is the sky blue? I was curious. When I got a little older, when I was about 10, I got curious about technology. Now, what was technology when I was 10? Radio. That was the high-tech appliance in our home. We would listen to the radio, and I enjoyed, just like the rest of my family, listening to the shows and the music and the news. But I wasn't satisfied with merely using a radio. I had to know that burning question that defined my entire career. How does it work? I had to know how it worked. I can recall vividly finding an old discarded radio, taking it home, and deciding to figure out how it works. And I used the time-tested method of engineers since the Egyptians. I took it apart. By the time I was done, I had a pile of tubes and condensers and resistors. I didn't know that's what they were called at the time. I didn't know what they did. I didn't know how they worked, but I wanted to know. Later, when I went to school, I found out I had an affinity for math and science. And I went on to get a degree in electrical engineering. I now had the tools, the training, and the education to ask and answer some of those questions. For the next 42 years, I was paid to be curious about our customers' needs. How can I make it work? Halfway through my career, I transitioned into a role called reliability. What that means is sometimes when I build something, it doesn't work. It breaks. A good engineer will ask the question, why did it break? How did it fail? Why? So that you can change the design so that that failure does not happen again. I wanted to know how it worked, and I wanted to know how to make it work better. I'm retired now, and no one is paying me to be curious. That doesn't stop me from being curious. I am still just as curious now as I was when I was 6 years old, as when I was 12 years old, as I was last week. I love thinking about how things work. Now, most of what I think about is technological. How does a computer work? Well, I know. I found out. How does GPS satellites, how does that system work? It's a fascinating, well-designed, elegant system, and I now know how it works because I was curious. Are you curious? Are you curious about things? I'm curious about all kinds of things, not just technological. Maybe you share my curiosity. What is it exactly that makes the Kardashians famous? Anyone?
It's their fame.
Anyone? They're famous because they're famous. Another imponderable that we could go on for a long time is, how does Washington work? I'm still trying to figure that one out, and I think several million other people are trying to figure that one out as well. I love to know why things work. When you ask those famous questions, who, what, when, where, why, how, my favorite are why and how. Why does it happen and how does it work? I encourage you to be curious if you're not already. If you are a curious person like myself, stay curious. And don't just take my word for it. Albert Einstein said, it's important not to stop asking questions and discovering. Curiosity has its own reasons for existing. Mr. Toastmaster.